I'd like to preface the share that in no way should anything I say be taken as halacha l'maisa. I do not know halacha l'maisa, and I certainly read a lot, but in no way should anyone go out here saying that they heard this shita and this is halacha. Those shitas aren't halacha. It's very hard to work out, especially in this Indian halacha l'maisa. There's a Gemara in Brachos, Daf Yud Aleph on the base. The Gemara is discussing Birchas HaTorah, and the Gemara brings a brisa, and the brisa says like this. It's not a brisa. The Gemara says it's going to bring a brisa. It says Amar Rabbi Yeshua, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. It's Yud Aleph on the base in Brachos. Hishkim Nishnos Ad Shalom Kara Krishma. Sarach Levarach. If a person gets up early before he said Krishma, and he wants to learn, so he has to make Birchas HaTorah before he learns. Mishakara Krishma, but if he already said Kriya Shema, ain't Sarach Levarach, and then he wants to learn afterwards, he doesn't have to make Birchas HaTorah. Shekvar Nifter Ba'ava Rabba, because the Gemara says, Yehuda Shmuel says that you could be Yotzei Birchas HaTorah by saying Ava Rabba. You said Ava Rabba before Krishma, so Ava Rabba substitutes for Birchas HaTorah. There's different ways to be masber that in the Rishonim. I'm not going into Ava Rabba. That's the member of the Gemara. Tosa says Shekvar Nifter B'Ava Rabba. Tosa says B'Yerushalmi, that is Yerushalmi that says Yerushalmi Yesh Had Arbin and Shekvar Nifter B'Ava Rabba. This that we say that if you already said Ava Rabba and Shema, when you learn later you don't have to say over Birchas HaTorah. V'hu Shana al Asar. That's only if he learned right away on the spot. That Ava Rabba only helps if you learn on the spot. Tosa says perish. What does it mean al Asar? La'alter, right away. Shalamad biyad ba'oso makom, that he learned right away, ba'oso makom, without going anyplace else. So Pashav Shat miyad means, even though it's not muchach, but Pashav Shat, the books before she learned, miyad means it's considered miyad. If miyad, he was davening, he said Ava Rabbi, he said Krishma, he said Shmon Esrei, but it means right after davening. Miyad, Pashav Shat means right after davening he sat down to learn. That's when Ava Rabba patters. And Tosa says like this. It's not muchach, but that's what Pashup Shat, the way the Achronim learn. The Nishal Harav Rabbi Yitzchak Kagon Anu, it says they asked the Ri Kagon Anu She'ein Anu Lomdi Miyad La'achar Tfilos HaShachar. He says, people said, we don't learn after davening. Sha'anu trudin, because we're busy. V'holchim, kach b'lo limud ad emsa hayom o yoser. And we go away, I guess they're going to work, they're going to their jobs, and we don't go back to learn until the emsa hayom, or even later than the emsa hayom. Amai einanu mevorchim berchas HaTorah pam acheros kishanu maschil l'lumod. Why shouldn't we have to say berchas HaTorah? Whether he means that they had Ava Rabba or Pasha Shat, they said Birchas HaTorah in the morning, but they had a long hefsek. And you see the word says Ava Rabba, if you have a hefsek, it's not good. You have to be Shona al Asar. So they asked the Ri, so why don't we have to say another bracha in the afternoon? They go to work and they come and they learn later in the day. So why don't we have to make a Birchas HaTorah? The Heishiv Ri. So the Ri answered, the Lokaim and Kos Yerushalmi. He says, we don't paskin like that, Yerushalmi. We paskin that there's no need to learn al Asar. Even by Ava Rabba, he says, we don't hold like that, Yerushalmi. Hold the Gemara Shalano lo Amru lo Amru. We don't find such a sheet in the Bavli. We only find that in the Yerushalmi. Ve'ein tzarech la'alter lilmod. So there's no inyan by the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, by Birchas HaTorah. There is no inyan to have to learn right after the bracha. Remember, there's two questions when we deal with the inyan of hefsek. There's a question of a hefsek between the bracha and the actual learning, and then even after you start learning, then you make a hefsek in the middle of your learning. Here Tosfos is even dealing with a hefsek between the bracha and the learning, and he also says in his first shot the Bavli doesn't bring such a din of the Shana al Asar. So even if you say Birchas HaTorah in the morning and you're not learning at all, now we'll see later that the Tzarfati were started the minhag that we say parts of Torah right after Birchas HaTorah, but even they didn't have that then, and he said Birchas HaTorah in the morning, and even though in davening there are certain parts of Torah, but we're going that what you do as tefillah is not considered Talmud Torah probably. So Tosa says that we don't care if there's a big, even it's true that's a hefsek, we don't actually start learning till the afternoon after work, but it doesn't make a difference. We don't pass like the Rishalmi, and we don't care that there is a hefsek. That's his first shot. The Ode, Afilu L'fi Yerushalmi, he says, even according to the Rishalmi, if you hold like the Rishalmi, Dafka Hava Rabba, Delo Havi Iker Bachla Birchas HaTorah. He says this, that the Rishalmi requires a Shana al Asar, that you can't have a hefsek, you have to learn right away, like Tosas Li'alter. That's only when you want to be Yosei Birchas HaTorah with the bracha of Ava Rabba. The lo havi iker bracha leberchas HaTorah, because that's not mainly a bracha for Berchas HaTorah. Ava Rabba is a bracha for Krishma. The iker Ava Rabba leKrishma niskan, because Ava Rabba was a takana for the bracha of Krishma. V'shvil he eno nifter beberchas HaTorah elam yilmom niyad. He says because Ava Rabba isn't normally a bracha for Birchas HaTorah, it's a bracha for Krishma. So therefore, if you don't learn right away, you're not going to be Yotzei with Ava Rabba, because it does, like the Rishonim say, it's not nearer to Birchas HaTorah. It looks like a bracha for Krishma. And Tosas adds, Ella, you have to be Yilmon Miyad, V'gam Lo Yasa Hesach Chadas. It's not clear what he means, but Lo Yasa Hesach Chadas. But maybe we'll go back later. But Tosas is saying that could be, even according to the Rishalmi, that requires Shana al Asar, that you should have a hefsek. That's only when it comes to the bracha of Ava Rabba, because that's not, it's of a bracha for Talmud Torah, that's a bracha for Krishma. So to be considered a bracha for Talmud Torah, you have to learn right away. But if you're making a birchas asher b'charbanu, a birchas lasso b'divrei Torah, shehein iker lebrichas haTorah, but the brachas of birchas haTorah, Tosas Pashat is going that, there's a machlokas Rishonim, if it's 3 brachos or it's 2 brachos. If a harav knows a separate bracha, but Tosas mentions 2, so the Chavar is going that it's 2 brachos, which many Rishonim hold. So Tosas, those are the brachos which are for birchas for Talmud Torah. They're the ikar birchas haTorah. It's poteres kol hayom. So therefore, Tosas has 2 pshatim. His first shot, he didn't hold of a chilik between Ava Rabba and Birchas HaTorah, and the Rishalmi requires that you can't have a hefsek, it has to be Shana al Asar. But he says the Bavli doesn't hold like that Rishalmi, and because the Bavli never mentions Shana al Asar. So therefore, when it comes to the Bavli, we don't care if there's a hefsek, and that would be true even by Ava Rabba. That's his first shot. The second shot he's saying that could be even the Rishalmi that requires that you don't have a hefsek. You need Shana al Asar. That's only when it comes to Ava Rabba, which isn't be'etzem a Birchas HaTorah. Really, it's a bracha for Krishma, so that it should be nicker to be. I'm just saying this Hesper. He's not saying that. He just says it should be that it's not, since it's not for Birchas HaTorah normally. So you have to be Shana al Asar. And I'm just saying the Rishonim say because it has to be nearer to Birchas HaTorah. So therefore you have to have Shana al Asar. But by Birchas HaTorah itself, the regular Birchas HaTorah, Peshabak Rabbanu and the Haravana. Last with the Torah, he says those brachas, those are, we don't even care if you have a hefsek. There's no Indian, there's no problem of having a hefsek, and Tosas is going, there's no problem of having a hefsek. He's going even between the bracha and the learning. Aval, so okay, then he says Im Tomer. Now Tosas says, My shna misukah shetzarach levarech al kol suda usuda leishe b'sukkah. How come when it comes to sukkah, we say the halacha is by sukkah, every time you go in for a meal, you have to make a new bracha leishev basukkah. So every time you go for a meal, you have to make a new bracha. If there was just time between each suda and suda, you have to go for a new bracha leishev basukkah by each meal. And how come when it comes to Talmud Torah, we're saying now we don't care if there's a hafsik. When you make both shitas, when you make birkat and tosas, both when you make a birkas HaTorah, we don't care if there's a hafsik. It doesn't bother us having a hafsik or not. Why is it any different than sukkah? V'yesh lomar, so Tosas answers the shiny Torah she'enu miyayish daito. Says Torah is different than sukkah because when it comes to the mitzvah of Torah, you're not miyayish your dad. Your mind doesn't go off of Torah. Because you're constantly mechuyev in the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. So when it comes to Talmud Torah, he says the mitzvah is constant. There's no such thing as you're having hafsik. You're constantly obligated to learn. So the fact that you're taking off and going someplace and doing something and going to work or whatever you're doing, he says that's not considered a hafsik because there's a chiyuv the whole constant time. Avo achila b'sukkah ye shoah kavua. But when it comes to sukkah, he says there's a shoah kavua. There's a set time you have sudas. People don't eat sudas the whole day, Maybe those days they had 2 meals. Maybe we have 3, breakfast, lunch, and supper. But the zman of the suda is kavua. So when the zman of the suda is kavua, so he says every time you go into to have a suda, you have to make a bracha because once you finished one suda, the suda was over, and then later on you're doing a new maisa, another suda. So therefore you make another bracha. But he says by Torah it's not considered a hefsek because a person is not miyash daita of Torah. He has a chiyuv the whole time, and he's not miyash his das from Torah. It's not very, very clear exactly to get exactly what he means. Is not very clear. There's a question when it comes to Talmud Torah, that Tosas says that there is a chiyuv to learn Torah tamid. So it's not clear exactly what the chiyuv to learn Torah tamid is. So and this Tosas, it could be it's in the Igros Moshe too. I didn't look, but I have a sefer that this is a sefer Zikaron that came out with Zecher Moshe Feinstein Zatzal. There's a shtickle Torah over here, mostly on the mitzvah of learning Torah. It's an interesting tshuva, but Ramesh's he's really going the Rambam shita, but Ramesh's shita is that the Rambam holds there's a chiyuv to learn Torah constantly, and that you could take off to learn or to eat or to do whatever you have to do is necessary. You can take off to work, and to eat, and to do whatever you have to do. He says that doesn't stir to the fact that there's still a chiyuv. He says it's a chiyuv, it's a constant chiyuv to learn Torah, and you have a heter to do these things. But even b'shas that there's a heter to, let's say, go to work. And it's interesting the way he says what the heter to go to work is. He says that the heter is not only to go to work to make your daily needs and to live b'tochak. He says a person has a heter to go to work to live comfortably, the way everyone else lives. And not only that, he says a person has a heter to go to work and take off from learning, even if he wants to live luxuriously, even if he wants to live like an usher and make a lot of money. He says it's completely mutter for a person to do that. He says you're not going to become the greatest Talmid Chacham that way, and you're not going to be doing Torah karoi. But he says as far as the etzem chiyuv to learn Torah, your chiyuv, he says, a person has a chiyuv call the whole time, and there's heterim to do certain things, and there's heterim to make parnasa, and he says you're not limited in the parnasa. He says that's not to learn Torah karoi is a different madrega, but the exact chiyuv, he says, says it's not. It's a heter for parnas. He's marich in that, and he says pashav shot in Tosus. The Tosus is saying that the chiyuv of Talmud Torah. That's what Tosus means when he says the chiyuv of Talmud Torah is tamid. He says probably Tosus means the same thing the way he learns the Rambam. That therefore, even when you're taking off to work or to eat, to do whatever you have to do, it doesn't steer the chiyuv. It's a chiyuv when you have a heter. That's what he first says. And then he says, and he has reasons, but then he says that he feels that that's not really pshat in Tosas, because it's Tosas' second thing we'll see later. He says, could be Tosas doesn't agree with that. He says, could be the pshat according to Tosas says that when you have a chiyuv, he says, obviously, everyone knows a person can't learn, doesn't have to learn the whole day. He's allowed to go to work. He's allowed to eat, and maybe if some people are on the madrega that even while they're working and they're eating, they get tracked in learning. But most people aren't. The Ruba aren't. So he says, could be there the pshat. Could be you don't have to learn like he's saying. He said, could be there the pshat is you're only mechuyev to learn when you're not occupied in things that are absolutely necessary. In other words, the pshat is you're mechuyev to learn when you have free time. If you have to work and you have to make parnasa, that's not your free time. So then you're not mechuyev to learn at that point. It's only when you're able to learn, when you have time to learn, then you have your chiyuv to learn. So when Tosas says that there's a chiyuv to learn tamid, he's mesupik what Tosas means. Does he mean that there's mamash a chiyuv to learn tamid and you have a heter to take off? Or the pshat is, it's not even while you're taking off for these things, it's not the pshat that there's a heter. There is no chiyuv whatsoever at that time. The chiyuv is only when you're able to learn and when you have time. So he, even though he sticks to the first shot of the Rambam in Tosas, he seems to say that he feels that the second way is more correct. But one thing Tosas says is that there is a chiyuv tamid to learn Torah, and therefore he says when you're taking off, whichever way you learn, when you're taking off, you're not miyayish from learning Torah, and therefore when you're taking off, it's not considered a hefsek. But when it comes to Sukkah, he says that by Sukkah, he says you're making a bracha by Sukkah on the Kviyas Suda. This bracha goes on the Suda. And if the bracha is going on the Suda, he says a Suda, you can't say you're not mechuyev to have a Suda the whole time. There's a Zman, there's a Zman which is your Koveya for Suda. So the Chiyuv bracha is on that Zman that you're Koveya for Suda, and since that's a Shah Kavua, so then when that Zman is over, so then there's a Hefsek, and then when you come back to eat another Suda, so that's a new Kviyas for a Suda, so you have to make a new bracha. Now, when it comes to Sukkah, when Tosas says over here that we make a bracha leishe b'Sukkah on the Kviyas Suda, it's not exactly clear how come that's true, and there are many different shitas in the Rishonim about that, and most Rishonim don't even pass that way. We're knowing that we only make a bracha and a Kviyas Suda. Most Rishonim don't even hold like that, and a lot of people were knowing not like that. Even later in Achronim, they were knowing like the Gra. But we're going in Tosas Shita. The Tosas says the Chiyuv is on a Kviyas, is on when you're Koveya Suda. Now, really, when the Gemara discusses what the mitzvah of Yeshivas Sukkah is, so the Gemara says that when it speaks about the mitzvah of Sukkah, this is a Gemara in Sukkah Daf Chav Ches and Beis. Tana Rabbanan Kol Shiva Sayamim Adam Osa Sukkaso Kava Udeisu Aroi Keitzid Hoyu Lo Kelim Noim Malon L'Sukkah Matzos Nos Malon L'Sukkah. Then it says what you have to do in the Sukkah besides bringing in your Kelim into the Sukkah that you use. But Ochel V'Shosa U'Matayel B'Sukkah. but you're mechuyev to be ochel, the shosa, to eat and to drink, and metayel. Usually we're used to the word tiyul, it means to take a spatzir, to go for a walk, but obviously people aren't going for walks in their sukkah. So the Rishonim translate metayel over here means to when you're just like things in your house, you walk around in your house. So here it means walking around. It doesn't mean going for a spatzir. It doesn't mean going for a walk someplace. But it means walking around in your house. Some people it doesn't mean shmoozin for shmooze, but it's not mashma like that. Even in Mishnah Berurah it's not mashma, because after when the Shulchan Aruch brings the dimah tile, he says the Maril says if you want to have a shmooze with your friend, you should shmooze, and so it's not mashma that he's holding a shmooze is to get it what the word metayel means. But the Gemara says clearly ochel b'shosa u'metayel b'sukkah. And the Gemara says Menani Mili the Tana Rabbana Teishu came to Duru Mikan Amru Kol Shiva Sayamim Osad on Sukkos Kval Beisar Roy Ketzad, and it says the same brisa. And here it says Ochel B'Shosa U'Metayel B'Sukkah, and in this brisa it says it adds U'Meshanein B'Sukkah. So when the Gemara says what the chiyuv is to do in a sukkah, so it limits it to these. It says over here 4 things. It says Ochel B'Shosa, to eat and to drink, and to be metayel, and to be meshanein, and to learn in the sukkah. It's an amazing thing which before Shem asked, one of the Rashi says in a number of places, in Shas, in Sukkah, and Shabbos, other places too, Rashi says the Iker mitzvah of Sukkah is the Achila and the Shina, and yet when the Brisa speaks about what you're supposed to do in a Sukkah, it doesn't even mention Shina. So why wasn't Shina mentioned? Because Rashi says a lot of times. Rashi says that the Iker is Achila and Shina. And here in the Brisa, when it says it, it doesn't even mention Shina. The first it says 3, then it says it brings the Brisa, it mentions 4. It says Ochel b'Shosa Metayel u'Meshanein b'Sukkah. Shanein is learning, but it doesn't mention sleeping. So the truth is that there is a Ragachaver who says different than all the Rishonim and the Achronim. The Ragachaver says, but he's only saying it in the Rambam. He makes a diuk in the Rambam, which is not such a strong diuk, but he makes a diuk, and this is the Ragachaver sheet in the Rambam. There is no mitzvah to sleep in a sukkah. There's just an isser to sleep out of the sukkah. But there is not a mitzvah to sleep in a sukkah. But there is. I mean, he agrees that there's an isser to sleep out of a sukkah, but he says there's no mitzvah. And this price is a shtickle right to that, but everyone else, I mean, that's a Ragacher shtickle in a Rambam, but everyone else in the Rashis and the Rishonim say beferish that the Iker of a sukkah is a Shina, so there's a big problem why the Brisa didn't mention Shina. So I looked around. The only mahalach I don't have a mahalach, but the only mahalach I saw was brought down. I didn't look it up, but I brought down from the Minchas Elazar. The Minchas Elazar says in a tshuva, because the Brisa is only mentioning things that you're only mechuyev in the sukkah. That you have the mitzvah sukkah when you're koveya. The mitzvah sukkah is telling you what you have to do, not the mitzvah kumus, but the chiyuv. He says the Brisa is telling you things that you're mechuyev to do in the sukkah, that the sukkah is mechayev, and you're only mechuyev to do these like achila. Like achila, there's a din achilas kva you have to eat in the sukkah. Achilas aroy, you could eat out of a sukkah. Exactly what goes into aroy and what goes into kva, that you have to learn the halachos. But everybody agrees that achilas kva is a chiyuv in the sukkah, not achilas aroy. And he says that by Shina, the Gemara says that Shina, it's a maklokas in the Gemara, but we paskin that ain't kva the Shina, that even a little bit, a little sleep, a little short nap, a few seconds, a few minutes at least. So you're mechuyev in a sukkah, because when it comes to sleeping, there's ain't kva Shina, and therefore he says the reason the Brisa didn't mention Shina because these other things, he says it's only chiyuvim when you're koveya, and he says Shina you're mechuyev even when you're not koveya, because ain't kval Shina. If you think about it, the teretz isn't so geshmak, because it's not the pshat there's no din of kvius by Shena. Pasha Rashi learns because by Shena every second is like it's considered sometimes people just for a second of sleep or something, or not a second, let's say a minute or two, it serves the purpose of a long sleep. So it's like considered like a kavua. But this is the Minchas Elazar shot, and I don't know another shot why the Brisa didn't mention Shina, because I'm stressing this because it's going to come up that Tosa is going to bring in Shina, so we're going to have to know about Shina. And Agavurcha, it's not so clear that when the Gemara says that ain't kval Shina, and any time you take you fall asleep a little bit, there's an issur of sleeping outside of a sukkah. So you just take a 2-minute dozer or something. That there's an issur on that. But it's either in Machlokas Rishonim that even less than that. Some say the Shina is Meyahama, the time it takes to work with Meyahamas, but there are different people that say that the Shira is even an Nimnim, even closing your eyes for a second. There's a there's a problem according to many according to Rishonim. So I even saw that, I never heard this before, but while I was working on this, I saw that some people say that that's a reason not to stay up Hoshana Rabbah and learn, because you're going to doze off, Dorach Klal. Not necessarily for an hour or 15 minutes or 10, 20 minutes, but you're going to doze off for a few seconds, so it's very possible. And there's this cheetahs that hold that there's mamash and isser to be menamnim. I'm not telling you that halach l'maisa, but it was interesting that there was such a shita where there are some people that are very makbid not to stay up Hoshana Rabbah, because how could you stay up the whole night and not? I mean, people do, but generally there's a big problem of dozing off, not for a long time, but for a short little while, and certainly if you hold even nimnum is usher. So okay, but that's certainly that's not the minig of the olam. But one thing is true, that even though the brisa does not mention Shina, and the Rishonim, except I'm telling you that Ragachar, what the Rishonim say that Shina is an ikur chiyuv in a sukkah. And Rashi says that a number of times. There is a Rabbi Peretz on Daf Chav Zayin that says it's not an ikur, only a chil is an ikur. But Kemat, all the other Rishonim that I saw that's brought down mention that Shina is an ikur. So now the question is, when we make a bracha, we only make a bracha on achila, even though the Brisa says clearly you make a bracha on the chiyuv of teishul kain to do. There's a chiyuv of achila and tiyul and learning. We don't make a bracha when we do those things. So why is it that we only make a bracha on achila? So the Rishonim bring down because the ikar kviyas that a person has is achila. The ikar deer of a person has in his house is achila, or could be Shina too, and Tosa will discuss why Achila over Shina. So some Meforshim learn, and it's really a Tosa Yudah Chassid, and I saw other Achronim say, that when it comes to the other two that the Brisa mentions, the Tiyul and learning, they say Beferish that even though, this is a little problem with the Minchas Elazar, but even though the Brisa mentions that, but there is no isser to be metayo or to learn out of the sukkah. So therefore, there's no bracha on. There's only a bracha with something which you have to do in the sukkah that you're not allowed to do out of the sukkah, and those things you're allowed to do out of the sukkah. Rekayim the mitzvah when you do it in the sukkah, those things you're allowed to do out of the sukkahs, but there's no bracha only on those things which are an ikar that you're not allowed to do out of the sukkah. So achila you're not allowed to do out of the sukkah, and achilas kva. So there they were masakin a bracha on achilas kva. And Tosa says, and achilas kva normally has a shah kavua. People don't have an achilas kva the whole day. They have times that they eat their kviyastik asuda. So the bracha was only on those times. So therefore, by sukkah, there's a din of that if you eat one meal, and then you eat another meal, so you have to make a new bracha on the second meal. By the way, in halacha, it's not, that also is not so clear, and it's not so clear what Tosas means. For example, is Tosas talking about that if you eat a meal, and then you go out, and then you come back later to eat a second meal, so then you have to make a bracha on each meal? Or let's say a person eats a meal, he eats his lunch, and he sits in the sukkah the whole time, he learns whatever it is, he chooses, he learns, we hope he's learning, but whatever it is, he's staying in the sukkah, and now it's supper time and he's eating another meal. Does he make another bracha? When Tosas says you make is only does Tosas mean you make a bracha on achilas sukkah, on achilas kva every time you eat a suda? Does he mean only if you were mafsik and you left the sukkah in between, so when you come back to eat, you're mechuyev to make a bracha? Or does Tosas mean that even in the same time, in other words, you ate, you made a bracha leisha b'sukkah, and you remained in the sukkah, and now it's already supper time, and do you make another bracha on that suda? That's a big machlokas achronim, a big machlokas poskim. So you have to go to your posik what to do halakha l'maisa, and I'm sure he'll agree with the part of sitting and learning in the sukkah till the next suda. That he'll agree with. As far as making a bracha on the next suda, that you have to go to a posik.
Does the bracha you make on the achila work for the rest of the time you're in the sukkah, or is just for the achila?
Okay, so Tosas says clearly, the Rishonim bring down that the Rush brings down Tosas. The Rush says that when you make a bracha, the Rush also brings this idea that by sukkah it's on the kviyas suda, that's the ikar kviyas, and the Rush mentions that when the bracha on the leisha b'sukkah helps for everything you do, bein suda l'suda. So therefore, if bein suda l'suda, you're going to have tiyul, or you're going to have this learning. So he says it helps for that, it patches that. Now there's a whole shaila what that means. The Taz, and most people that I saw paskin like the Taz, it says that since you see that the Rishonim speak, it's not only the Rush, but a number of Rishonim speak out that the bracha on the achila patches that. So he says it's only what would be in the case. Let's say a person it's on sukkahs and a person has a tainus chalom. He's having a tainus. He's not going to eat that day. He has to have a tainus chalom. Or let's say he's not planning to eat a suda. He's not planning to eat achilas kfa. He's not interested in eating, and he's just going to have a little snack here and there throughout the day. Some people don't like to sit down and have a meal, so he's going to eat not an achilas kva, just an achilas roy. Let's say cholamoid. If you eat an achilas roy, not gebega, you don't have to make a leisha b'sukkah. So a person who's not going to make a leisha b'sukkah on achila. So the Taz says, since the Lashonos, I think he just quotes the Rush, I'm not sure, maybe he quotes others too, since the Lashonos are that the leisha b'sukkah you make by achila, but that patters the rest. So he says, you need a tour to patter the rest. So if you don't have the bracha on achila, like in this case, where he's not going to make a bracha on achila, so he says, he's such a person, every time he does something in the sukkah, will have to make a bracha, because you don't have the bracha on achila to patter. And I think that's, you have to check, but I think that's what the Mishnah Berurah brings out. I think the Mishnah Berurah goes with the Tats. You have to check, but most poskim go with the Tats. But there are poskim that say no, that all the Rishonim mean is that they weren't masakin brachas on the other things, because they only were masakin a bracha on the achila. And it's true that those brachas will pater, though, if you make the bracha leisha b'sukkah b'achila, it'll pater everything else. But they weren't masakin b'chal bracha on anything else. You could pater with the achila, but they only were masakin a bracha on achila. I think it's in my Mordechai that the post can bring down that he disagrees with the Taz, and he says no, that what Tosas means is they only were masakin a bracha on achilas kva. Okay, now the question is, but we said that Rashi, most Rishonim hold that achilas kva, because that's the ikar kviyas. So what about sleeping? Because the Rashi says that sleeping is an ikar kviyas. I can understand teal isn't an ikar kviyas. Learning isn't an ikar kviyas in the house. It isn't an ikar kviyas in the dira. But l'chora, sleeping is an ikar kviyas in the dira. And most Rishonim say it's an ikr. So now the problem is, so why is there only a bracha on achila and not a bracha on shina? So the truth is, Tosas, right after he finishes saying that by Sukkot you only make a bracha on the Suda, and you make a bracha by Suda on each Suda. It's different than Talmud Torah. There it's considered a hesed. So Tosas says, Tosas, why don't we make a bracha on Shina? Minig Tosas, he's asking from who says he don't, but the Maisa, he's saying that the minig was not to make a bracha on Shina. So Shina l'chora, Tosas means l'chora, that's a ikar like Suda. Tosas just got finished saying we make a bracha on Sukkah, on the eating, because that's an ikar. So l'chora Tosas was going, Shina is also an ikar, part of the dira of a house is sleeping. So he says, why don't we make a bracha on Shina? So Tosas says, in his first karet, he says, "V'yeshlomer the bracha da achila shemavorchin leishay potrasa." He says the bracha of achila patters the shina too. Since the shina normally comes, so this is the way the Rishonim explain. Even though shina is an ikar, but since the shina normally comes after the achila, you first eat and then you go to sleep. So the bracha of achila patters the shina also. Now, what would be if you don't have according to this Tosas, what would be if you don't have an achila to patter the shina? So most folks can understand Tosas to mean that in that case, it's not like I told you by Tiyul and by other things, by learning, but by shina, since it is an ikar, and Tosas held it was an ikar, if you don't have the bracha of achila, you would have to make a bracha on Shina. The Mishnah Berurah brings a psak, according to Tosas, the Chayadim says that Chayadim says like that. So Chayadim says a person eats a meal. So we said whatever he eats in that meal goes, that bracha goes to the next meal. But he says, what if a person after the meal leaves and he goes to do something, which he's certainly allowed to do, and then he decides that he's going to come back and sleep for an hour or two. Let's say he ate lunch at 12 o'clock, and he's not planning to eat supper till 6 o'clock. So he goes out after he ate his lunch, he goes out to do some stuff. And then he comes back to take a nap, and he's going to go out again. He's not going to stay now in the sukkah. He's not going to be sleeping, and then after sleep eat again. After he takes his the sleep, which is Achilas Kavai, he's going to sleep for an hour or two. He's going to go out again, and then he's going to come back later to have supper. So the Mishnah Berurah brings, the Chayadim says, in such a case you don't say the bracha of achila patters. He says normally. This the way the Taz says. Normally, the bracha of achila patters what you're doing right after the achila, and then when you go out and you come back in. So when you're coming back in, let's say you're going to go learn and then you're going to eat. So he says, the Taz says, according to this, the bracha of the eating patters the learning, even though the learning was done before. That's a tuffle to the achila. All these things are considered a tuffle to the achila. But the Chayadim says, but what would be in a case where you're going to go out again? You're going to come in and stay and sleep a while, and then go out again and come back later to eat. So the Mishnah Berurah brings down and he goes like the Chayadim that says in such a case, you have to make a bracha on the shina. We can't say that the shina is tuffle. It's not tuffle to the first achila, and it's not tuffle to the second achila. So you have to make a bracha on the shina. Many poskim disagree with the Chayadim. They say no, that Shat and Rabbeinu Tam, which is the one who says the ikra, you make a bracha on the achila. They hold that you make a bracha on achila to the next achila, which is mashman the Rishonim, and it doesn't make a difference. They would argue in the case of even though you're going out and then in and then out again before the next achila, they argue with this Chayadim. And the truth is, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach himself says, even though he goes with the Chayadim, he says the Mishnah Berurah later says that you don't the Mishnah Berurah is mashma that you don't ever make a bracha on shina. He has to steer in the Mishnah Berurah. He abides with the tzarechim. But later on, there's a Mishnah Berurah that says generally he says you don't make a bracha on shina. You only make a bracha on on achila, which the pashas of that Mishnah Berurah is, you never make a bracha on shina. So not only Rishon Arba, other people also, they ask a steer in the Mishnah Berurah. But here the Mishnah Berurah says clearly that when it since in the Chorah, the difference between shina and tiyul is because by shina it's considered an ikar kfiyas of dira. Whatever your ikar dira is, you have to make a bracha. Normally achila, you sleep after the chiyas of achila, the achila paters. But if you don't say, and the Chayyim is saying in his case the achila one, the bracha of leishay b'achila one pater, so he holds that they would you would have to. Let's say a person, let's say, has a meal and he goes out, he goes for a walk, or he goes to learn, and then he comes back to the sukkah to take a nap, and he's planning not to eat right after the nap. He plans to go out again. He says, according to the Berurah says, according to the Chayyim, which you have to make a bracha on the shina. So what can I tell you? That's
even if he's just he's not gonna go out after the shina. Shina then eat.
Because we say that the Taz says the achila pater is everything before.
Yeah, because normally it's tafel to the achila. But you say shina is not tafel.
He's saying even the Tosa says achila pater is the shina that you make later. So he says that's only as long as there's a shina right after the achila. There's no shayla if there's a shina right after the achila.
It's pater.
What?
Then it's pater already. But I'm saying if you're sleeping first and then you're eating later. So
then the shina, the next shina, if you're staying in, it's patel to the next achila. The Taz says it's not patel to the tafel to the first achila. It's tafel to the right. Even the Chayyim is only talking about when you're not going to go out after the shina. But if you make it, if you're going to sleep in it, I don't know how by Berkos Hamitzvah works that it's tafel and paters the before also, but that's what they say. They say that the bracha of the achila paters anything before, even shina before, just like the shina right after achila, the bracha leishay paters. Chayyim is only talking when you're stopping, and then you're going to go out again. But that's the case, and even there, the poskim aren't so happy with Chayyim. Where did he see that? The pashas and the pashas of the Russians also that they made a din that only by kviya suda, and kviya suda is the only time you make a bracha. Pashuv shot is. I mean, when I learned it, I thought the Pashuv shot was not like the Taz, was like the Mamre Mordechai. They made it. They were koveya bracha only on the ikar dira, which is achila. But Taz says not, and most posting go like the Taz that I saw. But the Chayyim is a bigger tradition. The Mishnah Berurah brings the Chayyim. But I saw that they asked this stira of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and I saw someone else also asked this stira in the Mishnah Berurah, because later on he says Stam Lashon that you don't make a bracha on shina. And it's mashma. I mean, you could be dokik. It means when there's anything. But he says stam. You don't make a bracha on shina, which is the pashas mashma. You never make a bracha on shina. And they ask, it's not like the chaye. So Tosa says that. So they ask, why don't you make a bracha on shina? So Tosa says the bracha of achila leishay paters the shina. Inami Tosa says. Mishum Shema Lo Yishan. The reason you don't make a bracha l'chara, this Tosas is me'enach na'am in a sfera, you should make a bracha on shina. And the reason you don't make a bracha on shina is because who says you'll fall asleep? Inami Mishum Shema Lo Yishan. And v'havi brachol of atala. And if you're not going to fall asleep, it's a brachol of atala. Sharei ein biyado lishan kol shor sheyirtza. He says, because it's not in your power that you're going to fall asleep. So this, the Meforshim have a big problem with. He says, l'chora, Tosa saying, if they were masakin a bracha on shina, what kind of bracha is on shina? How could you make a bracha on shina? Who says you're going to fall asleep? It's not in your power to fall asleep, even though the ruba of times, you know that there's when you go to sleep, you're going to fall asleep. It's certainly possible, but sometimes it's way out of the question that you're not going to fall asleep. And it's not in your power, but l'maisa, why should it be chayish that there's a time that you're not going to be able to fall asleep? But that's what Tosa says. Since you're not sure you're going to fall asleep, you don't make a bracha on Shina. So the Meforshim ask, I saw a number of Forshim. Moshe says, and I saw Rosh Hashanah Arbach, they say different shatim, but they say that. So what if you don't fall asleep? The whole idea is that when it says you're supposed to sleep in the sukkah, there's a mitzvah to sleep in the sukkah. What's the idea you're supposed to sleep? It's not biyado to sleep. The point is, it's a mitzvah to go to sleep in the sukkah. That's what it means. It's a mitzvah. What do you do in your house? You go into your bed and to fall asleep, even if you're not guaranteed that you're going to fall asleep. But that's what you do in the house. You go to bed in your house. So even if you're in a sukkah, so if you go to bed in the sukkah, that's what you do in your house. What's the difference if you end up falling asleep or not? The whole idea is to l'mashal. Let's go a little bit one step further. When a person is actually sleeping, does a person, when he's sleeping, get a mitzvah of being in the sukkah? There's a shaila in the poskim that let's say someone goes to sleep in the sukkah. So now we want the room. Some other people want in, and this guy's taking up too much room. He's sleeping in the sukkah, and he's everybody's way. So are you allowed to take that person out of the sukkah, or is that because he's not doing a mitzvah. He's out of it. Shota is pater. He's not even in the madrega of shota. He has no mind whatsoever. He's completely out of it. Is he getting can you get a mitzvah when you're asleep? So some poskim say you're right. That's take him out. Don't wake him up, then you have a different problem. But if he's sleeping hard enough that you can take him out and he won't realize, and he's going to stay asleep outside. You didn't take him away from the mitzvah. It's an important thing, but there's a Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He speaks about this in a couple of places. But before I get to that, he speaks about we paskin that when it comes to a mitzvah deraisa, mitzvah srichas kavana, that in order to do a mitzvah, you have to have kavana that you want to be yotzei the mitzvah. By sukkah, there's a different kavana besides the kavana to yotzei the mitzvah. Since the Torah says l'man yedu derosechem, so there is a Bach and others that say you have to have kavana to remember either the Anani Yakavad or the Sukkos Mamish, depending on the different mandamim, what the Sukkos is supposed to remind you of. You have to have that kavana, and most people say that kavana is only a lechatchilatika kavana. There is a prima gama that says it's ma'akiv, so therefore it is important to have that kavana too every time you go into the sukkah. But even though most hold that's lechatchila, but the din of mitzvah srichas kavana to be yotzi a mitzvah, that you have to have kavana. You might say that ain't a kanami, but stam is when you're going to the sukkah, your stam kavana is to do a mitzvah, and I'm not going to argue with that. But the shaila is a person who goes into a sukkah without kavana. He wasn't yotze, he didn't have any kavana to do the mitzvah of sukkah. And we pass the mitzvah srichas kavana. So what's the getter of being in a sukkah without kavana for the mitzvah of sukkah? If you're familiar, there's a minchas chinuch that says that when on Tosa's kasha, Tosa says that why do you need a pasuk l'cha to say that sukkah gzula is pasal? Why don't we say it's anyway pasal because the mitzvah boah ba'avera? So the minchas chinuch says that if you didn't have the pasuk to pasal the sukkah, if it would only be a mitzvah ba'avera, if you were sitting in a sukkah a gzula, says even though you wouldn't get a kiyum mitzvah, but you're not getting a kiyum mitzvah, but he says you're not sitting out of a sukkah, so you're not doing the isser of sitting out of a sukkah. But if it says l'cha, and l'cha says the sukkah is pasal, then it's considered like you're sitting out of the you're considered sitting out of the sukkah, because the sukkah gzula is not a shame sukkah. Now the Achronim are unhappy with that minchas chinuch for two studying. First of all, there's a whole shaila that could be mitzvah b'avera is also psul and the chefs, and that's a whole different sugya of mitzvah b'avera. But second of all, Nogea Sukkah itself, many Achronim Tainan, they say this B'Shem Reb Chaim, Reb Shimon says it in the Shar Yasher. They say there is no Isser to sit out of a Sukkah. You're not doing an Isser when you eat out of the Sukkah. It's just the whole Isser is you're doing the Avera, you're being over the Isser, being Mevatel a mitzvah. There's a whole question. There's two ways a person, even where there's no Isser Eseh, there's two ways a person can be Mevatel a mitzvah. He can be Mevatel a mitzvah b'kum v'aseh, and he can be Mevatel a mitzvah b'sheva al tasa. Let me give you a mashal. Let's say there's a mitzvah of sending away the mother bird. There's a mitzvah, if you take her, you have to send away the mother bird. Shluchakan. So let's say you kill that mother bird. So you were mevatel that mitzvah by doing a mitzvah of killing that bird. That it's not so clear, but that mostly everyone who agreed. That's called being mevatel on essay b'kum v'aseh. Right? If you stam away, you don't send it away, right? So you're mevatel b'shevi al tasa. You didn't send it away. And there's a chomer, even though we're not talking about an Isra, we're talking about the Avera of being mevatel and essay. There's a difference many times in halacha of mevatel and essay with a kum v'aseh, or being mevatel and essay b'shevi al tasa. So let's say you don't hold like the mitzvah. You hold there is no, like the other achronim, that all we're dealing with is an essay, and if you sit out of a sukkah and you eat out of a sukkah, you're being vatal a mitzvah. So when you're eating out of the sukkah, is that called you're being vatal a mitzvah b'kum v'aseh, or you're being vatal a mitzvah b'sheva al tasa. So Rabbi Kiveger says it's now they have Kiveger's that's in Shuvah someplace, but not in the commas and. One of the, somebody's foreign now Chuvas or Kiveger, but if you look in Kiveger and Sukkah, they bring it down. Kiveger says that there's that even if you eat out of a Sukkah, it's not called you're mevatel a mitzvah b'kum v'aseh. He says you're eating. There's nothing wrong in eating. The whole idea is you're supposed to eat in a Sukkah. So he says there's in the ma'isa of achila out of a sukkah, there's no isser in the achila out of a sukkah, just that you're not doing the mitzvah. He says that's called being mevatel a mitzvah b'sheva al tasa, even when you eat out of the sukkah. And there's a Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah, I think it's a Siman Tuf Reish Mem, brings a Pri Megadim. The Pri Megadim has a shayla like this. He says we know that a person Hochman who's in onain. If someone, the close relatives, died, so a person is an onain, and an onain until the klura, and an onain is putter from mitzvahs. An onain doesn't have a chiyuv to do mitzvahs. He's not allowed to do any isurim, but he doesn't have a chiyuv to do mitzvahs. So the Pri Megadim has a shaila. What about an onain? Is an onain is allowed to eat. He's not allowed to eat basar v'yayim, but he's allowed. An onain eats. Doesn't make brachos, but he eats. So the question is, in sukkah says an onain. Is an onain allowed to eat out of a sukkah? I mean, if you hold it's an isra asay, you're certainly not allowed to eat a sukkah. We're going now, it's not an isra asay, it's just a bittul asay. So the Pri Megadim says he's mesupik about an onain eating out of the sukkah because he says, could be that which we say an onain is putter from mitzvahs. An onain is only putter from mitzvahs when a mitzvah is b'sheva al tasa. But he says, could be that if he's being mevatel on a mitzvah with a kum v'asay by doing something, he says, could be then there is no ptur by an onan. An onan, that's also called being mevatel an essay, b'kum v'aseh, is also called an isser as far as an onan is concerned. And he says, could be, he says, an onan can't eat out of a sukkah because that's called being mevatel a mitzvah b'kum v'aseh. And that's what the Mishnah Berurah brings. I think he says, therefore, only shouldn't eat out of the. I don't know if he's machriya. I think so, but you have to look up to make sure. But the Pri Megadim does say though, but he does say clearly. He's not clearing if it's an isra asay. He says clearly. He's not clearing if it's an isra with kumva asay, being mevatel mitzvah kumva. He says clearly that when he eats out of the sukkah, he's being mevatel a mitzvah with kumva asay. He's just clearing that could be an onan still. It's only a bittul asay. Could be doesn't. There's no such thing by an onan, or it could be that's also called an onan is not allowed to be mevatel an asay b'yodayim. So he's saying eating out of the sukkah. So there are shitas now. It's not so clear. I know I saw one Rosh Hashiva said that could be the pshat in Rabbeinu Tam. The Rabbeinu Tam says that they're only kovei suda by achila, and the question is, in other words, we're saying certainly by tiyul, by tiyul and learning, you're allowed to do that out of the sukkah. There certainly is not. It's not called a bittul asay in any way. Now the question is, it could be that achila, which is the ikar, could be eating out of a sukkah is considered, like the Pri Megadim says, as being vatal yaseh v'kum va'aseh, and could be by there we say that that's when they were, so therefore in such a thing where you're not allowed to eat achilas kva out of the sukkah, that's by being over v'kum va'aseh, so you have to eat in the sukkah. So it could be they were masak and a bracha on achila. And could be, he says, by Shina, could be that's not called a kum va'aseh. It's only the ikar is, so even though you're not allowed to, certainly you're not allowed to sleep out of the sukkah, but could be that is going to be a sheva al tasa. I personally don't know where he sees that there should be a chilik in the Rishonim, but this generally you should know. So I forgot where it was talking about. We started like this. So a person is sleeping though, but he is sleeping in the sukkah. So if he's sleeping in the sukkah, l'chora, he's certainly not a bar das. He's certainly even a lesser madrega in the shota. Nothing is working. I mean, he might be dreaming, but he's certainly not aware that he's in a sukkah in his sleep. So l'chora, he's not getting a kiyum mitzvah. So when we say that there's a din of shina in the sukkah, l'chora, the whole din of shina in the sukkah, the whole mitzvah of sukkah of the shina is going to sleep in the sukkah. That's the theory. You go to sleep in your house. It's true you sleep in your house too, but it's hard to hear that the sleeping is going to be the kiyum mitzvah. You're out of it. So it's the going to sleep. So going to sleep l'chora is a dira. So what does Tosas mean? You don't make a bracha on leishev because who said you'll fall? Who says you'll fall asleep? So there's different approaches. And Ramesha says that he holds that when the Torah Sateshu came to Duru, the Iker Dira is the Achila. The Iker Kima Mitzvah, he says, is by the Achila. He doesn't go into the mitzvah of actually sleeping, but he says even though you're mechuyev to go to sleep, just like you go to sleep in your house, you go to your bed, the going to sleep is part of your dira in the house. So if you go to sleep outside of the sukkah, you're doing a dira out of the sukkah. But he says that going to sleep, even though that's an act of a dira, he says even, it's a tremendous big chiddush, he says even teal and learning, he says that's only the Rabbanan Dika Mitzvah. He says according to Tosfos, those are all the Rabbanans. It's not even though the Brisa mentions it. He says those are only the Rabbanans. He says according to the second Torah of Tosfos. He says the Chiyuv of Sukkah is only by Achila and not by Tila. And he said this Madrega, he doesn't talk about the actual sleeping, so I can't say. But he says going to sleep where you don't fall asleep, he says that's the same Madrega, even though that is Dira, he says that's the same Madrega of Til and learning, and he says that's a Rabbanan. Now other people I saw also say when Tosa says Achila is the Iker, but they say different. Like they say, like Tosa Yehuda Chassid. I saw that there's a Sefer Kovitz and Sower. There's a Hoshtikal Torah from a. He's not living anymore. They say Zatzal. I don't know who it was. Rabbi Kessler seems to be a very Hanuchash, a big Rav in Eretz Yisrael, who says that Teal and Shein is only a mitzvah kiyumis. It's not a chiyuv according to Tosas. So according to this, that the going to sleep will be the same madrega as Teal and Sheina. But the Rav Shlomo Zalman says that the actual sleeping, the chora, is not a mitzvah. How does a person have a kiyum mitzvah when he's sleeping? But then he brings, excuse me, then he brings from a steichamet. It's a whole big arichas, arichas. He says, I didn't look up the steichamet in Achronim. This madrega, do you get a kiyum mitzvah when you're sleeping? And he brings down from Tshuva Sefer that the Steichamet brings down that says you do get a kiyum mitzvah when you're sleeping. It's very hard to understand how you get a kiyum mitzvah. The Tosas kasha is, so when Tosas says over here that you might not fall asleep. So on this kasha that you might not fall asleep, I told you, so what if you don't fall asleep? L'chora, that's the dearest. I just told you what Moshe says, but Rav Shlomo Zalman says, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says that Eina Chanami says, just like you go, if you go, just like when the mitzvah says when you go to sleep in your house, but he says it's only chashuv, the going to sleep is only chashuv if you fall asleep, and if you don't fall asleep, it's Gloy Muslim Afreya, that the going to sleep wasn't the Maisa chashuv. It only makes sense if you actually go to sleep and you fall asleep. So he says Eina Chanami, he says if you would go to sleep outside the sukkah, but you wouldn't fall asleep, he says you wouldn't be doing anything wrong, because he says that's only a chashuv l'maisa if you end up falling asleep. So when I told this over to one of my son-in-laws who happens to be here for sukkahs, he told me that l'chora you have to make a sushta. Maybe it's steichemet. It says in the sefer I was reading, it said that there's a lot of arichas in the steichemet and this inyan of sleeping, that you get a key mitzvah or not. So he says you have to sushta. That Tosfos says that the Maran Bava Kamas talks about that if you're mazik when you're yoshin, a person falls asleep and then asleep he rolls over and he's mazik something. So there's different shitas of Rishonim. When you're chai, when you're not chai, when you're posher, because there was something there, you shouldn't have gone to sleep, or even if you're known as gumber, that there was nothing there at the time, and someone put something there later, and then you rolled into it. There's different shitas, but there was he said he heard from his Rosh Hashiva that there's a Rabbi, I didn't see the Rabbi inside, that the Rabbi says that if you're asleep, you're Einu Adam, you're not an Adam, you can't be called an Adam Mazik, because you're not a mensch when you're asleep, you're out of it. You're not called an Adam, so he said maybe that should be sushta. Do you get a mitzvah when you're asleep? Now, even if you don't get a mitzvah, people say that there are certain svarim that say that it's still a skula to be in the sukkah. Now, Rabbeinu Tam says you make when it comes to Birchas HaTorah. Going back a little bit to Birchas HaTorah now, because the Rishonim compare Birchas HaTorah to the case of Sukkah. Rabbeinu Tam says that when it comes to Birchas HaTorah, he says when you make a bracha in the morning, we don't care about hefsek. We don't care if there's any hefsek whatsoever. And he says that bracha helps till the next morning. Why does it help till the next morning? He says even if you go to sleep at night, you have a good night's sleep, but you wake up early. It's still nighttime. You wake up 4 o'clock in the morning. You could have had a good 6-7 hours of sleep over there. And he said you don't. And you go to start learning. This is not the way we paskin. But the Rabbeinu Tam says you don't make a Birchas HaTorah because the bracha you make in the morning goes to for the next morning. Now there's different ways how to understand, and the other Rishonim say, how could that be? How could the bracha? He says, even if you sleep, they say, even if you hold sleeping in the daytime is not called a hefsek, which is a shayla. I have to get back to that. But he says certainly going to sleep, a good night's sleep, it certainly should be considered a hefsek. Why shouldn't you make another Birchas HaTorah? Then? So most people learn, the ones I saw learn that according to Rabbeinu Tam, the Birchas HaTorah in the morning has the same halacha like a Birchas HaShachar. And the Birchas HaShachar it's not like a Birchas HaMitzvah, and it goes from morning to the next morning. But I was talking to another son-in-law, and he was telling me a chiddush, but I saw the chiddush in a certain sefer, and this is a very big chiddush, that there are certain mitzvahs in the Torah that it doesn't say a time. For example, there's a famous brisker of, let's say by tefillin, there's a machlokes of the Gemara of Laila Zman tefillin or not. We paskin Laila Izman tefillin. So brisker says, I don't know if he says it on everybody, but he says if you hold Laila Izman tefillin, so there's no place in the Torah when it spoke about tefillin that tefillin is totally in every day. Tefillin is a mitzvah to wear constantly, morning, night, till it gets to Shabbos. So he says, Lamashal, he says, if a person wears tefillin, let's say on Monday 1 hour, on Tuesday 1 hour, and every day of the week he does it for an hour, he says he's not any better off than a person who would wear tefillin on Monday. This is not halacha. This is the Brisker Rav in the understanding of tefillin. He says if a person would wear tefillin, let's say on Monday for 6 hours, and then he wouldn't wear tefillin the rest of the time. Certainly the Rabbanan is mechuyev. We're not talking the Maisa. We're talking about the mitzvah deraisa. He says the mitzvah deraisa has no hefsek. Laila is man tefillin. So except the hefsek is Shabbos, but every week. And he says, they say over it that he said it's no gay. Chol Hamoed. Obviously, there's a machlokas rishonim and poskim how we first we wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed or not. People with Hasidic backgrounds don't wear tefillin, but it's necessary totally in Hasidic backgrounds. A lot of people don't wear tefillin. Ashkenazim, derech klal, wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. So they say over the Shem the Brisker Rav that since we paskin tefillin is Laila's man tefillin, so it's like no hefsek. So if a person is nervous, let's say you don't wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. So let's say you wear tefillin normally every day you wear tefillin. It's an hour. Let's say a long davening, 2 hours. I don't know. Let's say an hour davening, right? So it comes out. So you missed a few hours of tefillin. It could be you were mechuyev, even though your minhag is not to, and the din is you follow your minhag, you don't wear tefillin. But if a person feels bad that maybe he missed out, so he says right after Yontif, go wear tefillin for 5, 6, 7 hours, and you'll make up those hours, because it's no difference to when the hours are. There is no zman of tefillin if Laila is Mount. Just like the Gemara says, by the way, by Sukkot, that's how really the Sukkot starts. In Sukkot, there's a machlokas later on in the Gemara, in the days, machlokas, you make, one mandamar says, you make a bracha on Sukkot all of the 7 days, and one mandamar says, why, by Lulav, he says you make every day, because the Zman is mafsik, the Laila is not Zman Lulav, but when it comes to Sukkot, since Laila is Zman of Sukkot too, he says you only make a bracha at the beginning of the mitzvah, you make one bracha leishiv, and that goes for the whole Sukkot. And the other mandamar, which we pass like, says you make the bracha called Shiva, and then the Rishonim say when he says to break the bracha called Shiva, even though Pasha means every day of the Shiva, but we say like every time, like it's totally, Rabbi Hochman says it's totally when we do it called achila v'achila. Other Rishonim say it's nothing to do with achila. Every time you go in, you make a bracha. That was the Gon Shita. But we say it's totally, so even though the Gemara says you make it called Shiva, but it means, they say lav dafik called Shiva, but it means by every achila. So now the question is, when it comes to Birchas HaTorah, so Rabbeinu Tam said you made a bracha in the morning. That bracha helps even if you have seikim, even if you go to sleep at night. And the Rishonim that don't understand, they say Tosa brings down, and it says lo nehira. That should be called the real hafsik. So what's the pshat? He says if it's still the nighttime, you still make a bracha, but he agrees the next day you make a bracha. He says, in other words, if let's say you get up in the morning, you get up 4 o'clock in the morning and you want to learn. So he says the fact that you went to sleep, it's not because he considered this the next day. Some of Forshim consider that this the beginning of the next day for you. So you make a bracha, which we do. But the Rabbeinu Tam says not like that. The Rabbeinu Tam says because the bracha you made the morning before goes for the morning and the following night till the next morning, even if you slept. So the question is, because Torah is a mitzvah t'midus. So Torah is a mitzvah t'midus. Where do you see? So the next day, why should you make a bracha? If you say this word that's like a birchas hashachar, which some people say, it's what the Ram seems to say, other people say, then okay, it's like they made a birchas Torah like a birchas hashachar. But if it's not like birchas hashachar, where does it come from? So one of my sons said that could be that's not the way we understand it. That even though it says that Talmud Torah, there's a mitzvah of morning, day and night, not the night before, but day and night. The Rishonim speak it out, day and the night following the day. It doesn't go like normally we say, by us we say the day starts at the nighttime and follows by the day, but just like by Korbanos, by Kachin, we say it's the day and the following night. By Talmud Torah, it's the day and the following night. So could be the next day is a new mitzvah, which he said is he was telling me, he says a very big chiddush. So I told him, yeah, it's a very big chiddush, but I saw it. So he wanted to know where did I see it. I said it's in a Rishon, So I looked up in my notes. I saw it. There's a Rishon. It's truth is it's much like that in a lot of Rishonim. But the one who says it, the Farish, there's a sefer called Sefer HaBatim, and I had it because I came across it. Not that I learned Sefer HaBatim, but I was reading a few weeks ago. There's a new sefer that came out. So someone in Eretz Yisrael. It's called Komet Ha'ari, and he brings it. He brings a Sefer HaBatim. We have that Sefer. It's printed up. We have it. They have a new one, Sefer HaBatim. And the Sefer HaBatim says that every day you learn Torah is completely a new mitzvah of Talmud Torah. And he said because the Torah says, because the lashon of the pasuk is, it says Vagisa bo yom v'layla. It doesn't say Vagisa bo yomim v'leilos. It says Vagisa bo yom v'layla. So for the lashon of the pasuk, we see that every yom v'layla is a bazundera mitzvah. So there's one mitzvah today and the following night, and the next day starts a new mitzvah, which is a very big chiddush. So when it comes to Talmud Torah, every day is a new mitzvah. So even Rabbeinu Tam, who says Birkas HaTorah goes for that for the 24-hour period from morning to the next morning, but he agrees the next morning you do make a Birkas HaTorah. So you could learn that, and that's how this Komet Sari Rabbi learns. I don't know his name, but someone in the Kol in Eretz Yisrael says that could be the Rabbeinu Tam holds like that Sefer HaBatim, and there are a number of Rishonim and who say this, that they don't say it out like the Sefer HaBatim says in the Hidarshan of Hagisa V'Yom V'Vayla, but they say that the reason they speak out that even though normally we say the 24-hour periods by us starts the night with the following day. That's how it goes. But they say when it comes to Talmud Torah, it doesn't work like that. They say it goes day and the following night, and that's why the pasuk says Yom V'Layla. It says the Yom before the Laila, and they quote a Gemara in Eruvin that the Gemara speaks about that we're busy the whole day and we don't learn, so we make it up by learning at night. Such a Gemara's lashon. Yosef and Brachas and a few other Rishonim bring such a lashon. They say you see from that Gemara that you make up what you didn't do you weren't able to learn in the daytime. You make it up by learning at night. So they bring a raya that the night follows the day, and so they don't go so far to say that the next day is a new mitzvah. But that's the mashmos, because they're saying that. You missed out on the day, you make up the following night. So it's a point. If it's it's just a kaseder tika mitzvah, then what do you mean you're making up? It's mashma. There's a mitzvah that period of time. Now the truth is that Rabbeinu Yonah, when Tosas over here says by Birkas HaTorah that Birkas HaTorah is not a hefsek. He says the reason there's no din of hefsek by Birkas HaTorah, he says, because you're not miyayish from learning and you're zechiyuv to learn the whole time, and if you start being medayak and different Rishonim who say the same point that there's not a hefsek, but they have different sforos when they speak about that it's not a hefsek. For example, the Rosh and the Rashba, they say, well, if people are rugil to learn. People are rugged, and their mind is always on learning. And even when they go to work, he says, and people try to get out of work as fast as they can so they can get back into learning, right? So therefore, even though they go to work, it's not hefsek, because their mind is that they're going to continue learning, and they even are hoping and trying to get out of work. If they can get out of work earlier, they'll leave work earlier, and they'll come back and learn. They'll learn faster. They want to be memayir and not have to do their work. So that's a little bit stronger than Tosas. Tosas says it's not a hefsek because there's a chiyuv to learn the whole time, and you're not miyayish from learning. The other Rishonim they go stronger. They say it's not a hefsek because your mind is on your learning, and even though now you're not going to be learning, you're going to work for a few hours. But your mind is you want to get out of there and you want to come back and learn right. You want to come back and learn right. Or you're married to learn. And in the Shuvas, he only says that's svara by a person who's taraso umnaso, who's constantly learning. So this svara that it's not a hefsek, there's a lot of different shittas. What's the madrega that it's not a hefsek? Some people say, well, according to the Rasha, normally a person who's not holding that he's so interested in learning and he has such a hava for Torah that he wants to get finished with this quick so he can go back to the Sefer right away, right? Then it would be a hefsek. So to determine what's considered a hefsek depends. Tosas doesn't say that. Tosas just says that a person is not miyayish. He knows there's a chiyuv, but he's not miyayish for learning. He's planning to learn more, but he doesn't go through the same madrega. Now, Rabbeinu Yonah says an altogether different svara. He says that, and this could be Rabbeinu Yonah's, holds like this Sefer about the Torah, because he says the reason if you learn and then you have a hefsek, he says even if you have a hefsek and even if you go to sleep, if you have a hefsek, he says you don't have to make a bracha, because he says the mitzvah, which is a chiddush, but he says the mitzvah of learning is you're going back to the same mitzvah. He says it's not like sukkah. Sukkah you ate your meal and you did the mitzvah. Then when you eat the meal, another meal later, you're doing another mitzvah of sukkah. It's not the same mitzvah. You're doing the same. It's the same mitzvah of eating in a sukkah, but it's a different mitzvah. He says by learning, he says that all the learning of that day is the same mitzvah. So when you go back to, this is the way I understand it, when you go back to learning, you're not doing a new mitzvah. You're continuing the old mitzvah, because there's an Indian of learning that day. To me, it makes much more sense if you say he holds like the Sefer about him, but I don't know. So he says that's a whole different svara than Tosas. Tosas is saying it's not a hefsek because you're not miyayish. The others are saying it's not a hefsek because your mind is on it constantly. There's other Rishonim that say the reason it's not a hefsek because even when you go to work, you could think in learning. Even though most people can't, but they say technically, in Lamaisa, you could think in learning, you could think as far as. So therefore, it's not a hefsek. But the Rabbeinu Yonah is mashma that it's not a hefsek. Even when there's a real hefsek, even when there's sleeping, it's not considered a hefsek, because when you go back to learn, it's still the learning of that day. It's like there's a mitzvah of learning that day. So therefore, it's like you're going back to the same mitzvah. Okay, maybe that's enough.